G'day there guys, it's your floating head in the sky, I read Reddit, back at it again from Australia. Now I hope you enjoy this episode because entitled parents are just the best, aren't they? Now let's get this bread and let's yeet this wheat. Our first story is posted by user SapphireFoxy, titled, Entitled Parent Decides That Dealing with Her Kid is My Problem. This happened a few months ago, so sorry if the details are hazy. I'm a huge theme park fan, and there's one in particular that I love going to, Alton Towers, which is considered perhaps the biggest and best in the UK. A coach company in my hometown was doing a trip up to the park, and I snapped it up as it was a pretty good bargain. The day of the trip comes, and I have everything ready in my bag. Fully charged DS, 2 bottles of juice, 1 frozen to keep the other cool, so I'll definitely have something to drink on the trip back. Some cakes to snack on, 2 books, and a power bank for my phone for when it runs out of charge. The pickup point for my town only has a few other people, a family of 4, a young couple about my age, and an entitled parent and her child. The coach pulls up and we all pile on. A coach is pretty sparsely populated, so most people spread out, and I take one of the window seats, putting my bag on the seat next to me. I'd have taken it off if someone I needed to sit next to me, and the entitled parent and her kid in the seats across from me. I'm just getting myself comfortable and setting myself up as the coach goes to the next drop-off point. When we get there, the entitled parent opens her big mouth for the first time. "Why are we stopping here, driver? Driver, why are we stopping?" Because there are other people that he needs to pick up. Her head snaps around, and she glares at me as if only then realizing she was on a vehicle with other people. "We should be heading to the park." And we will when he's picked up everyone else who's paid to be on the trip. The entitled parent doesn't like my attitude, and huffing and sitting back in her seat and glaring at everyone else who gets on. There's a blissful silence as we go to 2 more pickup points and grab the last few people before heading off proper. I have my Nintendo DS out, and I'm happily slaughtering demons in Shin Megami Tensei, Strange Journey Redux. About 20 minutes pass before the kid opens his mouth. I can't really call him entitled, as he himself never really demanded anything. "Mommy, I'm bored." "We'll get there in about 10 minutes, kid, don't whine." I couldn't help it, I laughed. "What's so funny?" "Lady, it's gonna be at least another 2 hours before we get to Alton Towers. 3 if we hit traffic." "No it won't." "Yes it will. I've done this trip before with the same company. You can check on Google, I'm right." "I didn't bring anything for him." I shrugged, not considering it my problem, and turned back to my game. "I didn't bring my kid anything." I rolled my eyes. "And?" "Give my kid your game." "No." 1. I don't know you from Adam, so I can't trust you not to steal it or break it. 2. I only brought 1 game, and it's not kid-friendly. It's a child's toy. And the game I'm playing has BDSM angels, rather graphic descriptions of torture, blood, and violence. It's really not a game for an 8-year-old. "You're lying." "No, I'm not. I'm also failing to see why I should be the one to entertain your kid. A failure to prepare on your part doesn't constitute an emergency on mine." I go back to my game, plug my headphones in, and turn the volume up all the way. After about an hour, I put the game down and decide to have a drink and some of my cake. The entitled parent is now asleep, and the kid is looking miserable. Feeling bad because it's not the kid's fault through his parent, I reach out to him. "Hey, you okay, kid?" He nods, looking sad. "Thirsty. Mommy didn't bring me a drink." "Okay, here." I pass over my juice. "Have a couple of swigs of that. Don't let the entitled parent know, or she'll never stop badgering me." He nods, looking tired and resigned, but happily having some of my juice. "Mommy does this a lot." I take my juice back when he was done, saying, "You have my sympathy, kid." I pull out my cake and book and nibble on it while I read. I'm fully immersed in a world of dragons. When I reach to grab another chunk of my cake from my Tupperware box, my hand finds nothing. I assume it slipped away, so I turn to look, only to see it completely gone. I look up, and the entitled parent is stuffing her face with it while the kid looks mortified. "Hey, that's mine!" She goes muffled through carrot cake. "Then why aren't you giving it to him to eat?" The entitled parent glares at me and gives the kid a small chunk while she noshes down the rest. The kid looks really sorry, but I mouth, "It's okay," and he eats a chunk of cake. The entitled parent shoves the empty box, still open so my bag got filled with crumbs, into my bag and notices the juice. "Kid needs this too." She goes to grab it, but I grab the bag before she can and stuff it under my seat where she can't get it. Just want to keep my stuff safe from sticky fingers. She isn't even embarrassed, just glares as I turn back to my book, feeling miffed about the carrot cake. It was really good cake. I ignored her for the rest of the way there, and when we got to the park, I thought it'd be the end of it as we got our tickets from the driver. As soon as we were in the actual park, I headed over to the priority pass desk. My grandparents, as a treat, had given me the money to buy a priority pass on every ride in the park, meaning I got to skip most of the lines for the rides. And it was not cheap. The Platinum card, which is what they had me get, while it can be used an unlimited number of times on every big ride, cost £100, which is almost twice as much as what I paid for the trip. I stood in line and groaned as the entitled parent and kid got in behind me, but settled for pretending she doesn't exist. The moment I got to the front of the line, before I could even tell the lady what I wanted, the entitled parent spoke up. "We're together. She's paying." I froze, turned around and glared. "Listen, lady, I have no idea what your deal is with me. Do I just have a passing resemblance to your mother so you think you can mooch off of me? Do you think because I'm alone, I'd be easy to bully into doing what you want? But freak off! I'm not your mother, and I'm not letting you bully me. You not bringing something to entertain your kid is your problem. You not bringing a drink for your kid is your problem. You not bringing food for your kid is your problem. Stop trying to make your problems my problems." I turn around and give a rather startled-looking lady my phone, which has the email confirming I bought a Platinum Pass for the Today on screen. How dare you? Shut up, no one cares." She gasps at me looking like a fish as I grab my card from the lady, say a quick sorry to her, and run off, losing the entitled parent in the crowd before she can come after me again. I thankfully didn't run into her again and got to enjoy my time at Alton Towers, and when I get on the bus back, I hid in the very back rows. The entitled parent even holding us up from leaving for about 20 minutes before stomping onto the coach and angrily flopping into a seat. We got off at the same drop-off point, but either she was too tired to try anything, or she'd finally gotten that I wasn't going to let her push me around because she didn't try anything. I do feel bad for the kid, and I hope he enjoyed his day out, even if his mother was a harpy. Our next story was posted by user Kuma from ARG, titled, "Mummy, I want that game," or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Observe Entitled Parents. First post on this subreddit. A couple of years ago, I was visiting a game store near the cooking school I was taking classes in. I'd been buying games there for years at that point, and I knew most of the staff, cool guys. As I arrived, I witnessed one weird scene. The staff member was talking to the entitled mother and entitled kid in question. The mother was around 40 years old and looked as if she had every syringe with Botox ever made applied to her face, heavily tanned skin, and straight black hair. Her son was around 8 years old, dressed all in top brand clothing, and was in the middle of a meltdown. As I mentioned before, this was a number of years ago, just as GTA 5 was released. I already had the game and had played more than enough, plus knowing Rockstar Games, to know that the game wasn't appropriate for children. The staff member also knew that and was in the middle of attempting to explain that to the entitled mother, as the entitled kid was having the mother of all tantrums. The staff member was really trying his best to explain that the game was not meant for kids, and there were ratings on the cover. But the mother didn't want to hear it, saying something along the lines of, "You're lying! Games are for little children! Stop lying! My son wants the game, every kid on his school has it!" Staff member, the poor saint, was really trying to convince her that it was the wrong game to buy. For a moment, I considered getting involved and trying to recommend some game more fitting to the kid's age. But upon seeing the entitled mother slamming the glass counter, I decided I didn't want to get involved in this crap. The argument continued for at least 5 minutes until the entitled mother, after several more threats, gave up and dragged her kid, who was on the floor kicking and screaming, out of the store. We laughed with the staff member and that was all. Or so I thought. Around 2 weeks later, the same woman entered the store while I was inside discussing with the same staff member about some new games. She was dragging the entitled kid behind her and had a copy of GTA 5 on her hand. She was beyond ticked, huffing and puffing like an angry baboon, and her face almost as red as their asses. Before the staff member could say anything, she started screaming her lungs out about how this store was perverted and was selling smut to children. Seemingly, she asked her husband to pick up the game after her failed attempt, and her sweet darling boy was now tainted, since she saw him play the paparazzi mission. The staff member took it like a champ, stoically standing under the hail of insults and threats until she stopped, and repeated the same thing she told her before. The game had a rating, it wasn't for kids, and it was her fault for getting the game. She demanded a refund, but the store only had 2 days full refund and a 1 week partial refund. She threw some more insults the staff member's way, and then left in a huff. The moral of the story is, if somebody tells you something they know about and you don't, you should bloody listen. Our next story was posted by user therealiser, titled, "You watch a video that insults my son's idol? I will call your school and tell them to take pictures of kids." Our car star, EM, entitled mother, AM, awesome mom. So for some backstory, I was walking back from high school while I was watching a video on how BS Jake Paul is, around February. These two children started running to a black Corsa. They said something, I was too focused on the video to hear, and it was a distance away. I walked up front, going to my house, when the entitled mother comes up to me and blabbers, "My children don't like what you are watching. Please turn it off. Actually, give it to me." No, freak off. I'm vulgar and don't know how to win an argument, so I often say vulgar language. "How dare you? Don't swear in front of my children. If you have a problem, shove it up my ass. I know where you live." I ignored it and kept walking. The entitled mother found my house and walked to it, then knocked on the door. And my mum said, "Hello? I don't know you? Your son swore at my children. Punish him now." "Sure, I will do." My mother then slams the door in her face. She tells me to explain what I did. I told her, we ignored it. Skip time a few weeks, and I saw the entitled mother and her kids. I recorded. She drove off as fast as she could, and then when I was at school, I was called into the Alpha Center, basically to be a helping assistant. She told me what that person called me for. She said you were taking pictures of people at X primary school, which wasn't true. I let her look at my phone. She determined, okay, we'll let the school know. At the time of the first incident, I was wearing a jumper with the school logo, so she called the school. This is most likely the case. I was ticked. It was time for your justice, Brenner, right? No. I'm still looking for the house so I can report it to the police. I have videos of both license plates of the car. I'll search them up and share results. Our next story was posted by user MxxN-Light, titled, "Entitled Mother Calls Me a Nazi Because I'm 9% German." Now, this isn't really a starter pack. No police, stealing, or whiny babies, unless you count the entitled mother. And I'm on mobile, so as you already know, formatting might not be as well. So, one of my good friends had a "let me speak to your manager" mother, and I felt bad for him. Luckily, later on, his parents got a divorce, and he lives happily with his lovely stepmother and father. On to the story. So on my mother's side of the family, they are German and Polish, Iconic, right? And my dad's side is English and Italian. I take after my dad more, and I'm mostly Italian. And yes, I like spaghetti and pizza, but I'm still 9% German. And with that, there are those stereotypical types of Nazi Germans back in the day that kind of ruined their reputation today. As I was visiting my friend for dinner, the talk about religion came up. His family said how they were a proud Jewish family. You can see where this is going, and that kind of stuff. But then my friend asked his parents about his relatives. Don't know why, but he asked me. I said how my mother's part and my father's part with the entitled mother, giving me the stick eye after I said my mother's part. After that, my friend and I went upstairs to play on a console, which I don't really remember, and I brought Call of Duty like he asked me. When the mother comes upstairs to check on us, probably just my friend. She then sees the screen and immediately starts screaming stuff at me for being German and me being a Nazi. Hold up, the heck? I just look at her confused as she grabs me by the ear and drags me out of the house. I call my mum and she comes and picks me up. My friend the next day ended up giving me my Call of Duty back, and the next day at school apologized for his mother and said how he was going over to my house from now on. Or until his dad gets a divorce, I guess. He also told me some stuff about what his mother did afterwards, which was to scream and hit him. Anyways, have a nice day, and I learned not to say how I'm part German in front of a Jewish family.